Morning, everybody. To everybody here in person and those online. For those who don't know me, my name is Sam, and I have been appointed and chosen by Jesus for such a time as this to preach to you today on Hidden Agenda. And I must admit that there were a number of 4 a.m.ers this week in particular where I was drinking my coffee out of the mug that we got at Ladies' Night. And God had to remind me, for those of you who haven't seen the mug, it says chosen. I have appointed and chosen you. And God had to remind me that He's chosen me to be standing up here today. And therefore, He will speak to you. And I've had to trust in that. So just for context, for those who might be joining us for the first time in this series, we're in a series called The Seven Giants. And the series originates out of a book by Bob Mumford called The Agape Road, if you're Greek like me. And the scene that he sets is when the Israelites, they've been rescued out of Egypt, they've come through the wilderness, they arrive at the Jordan under Moses' leadership, and God says, there is the land that I have promised you. There is the land of milk and honey. Go and take it. Moses sends out 12 spies to go and recce this land. Go and check out what we've got to deal with. Go and check out what this land looks like. And they all come back and say, the land is amazing. You must see the size of the grapes. We can barely carry the bunches. The agriculture is fabulous. 10 of them, however, said there's one big problem. The people in this land are giants. And they opt not to go in and take the land. They were defeated by the giants in their minds before they stepped out in God's hand to go and take what was promised for them. So out of this, Bob Mumford has stepped back and said, so what is stopping us as Christians today, as followers of Christ today, from taking the promised land that God has for us? And he's identified these 7 giants. And over the last couple of weeks, and if you've missed these, please hop onto our website and catch up. We looked at feel good, look good, be right. And then last week, Chris spoke about stay in control. And he described this giant as being 10 foot wide and 10 foot tall, right? Like this is the giant of giants. You cannot miss this one. He's imposing, he's huge. Today's giant couldn't be more different. Today's giant hides in the shadows. Today's giant waits for a moment of vulnerability, like a pickpocket, waiting for that moment when you're not paying attention, when you're most vulnerable, sneaks in and gets in and out before you even notice. It's a long time before you potentially notice that you've been robbed of something. Hidden agenda waits for us to be vulnerable. The mission of all of these giants is to prevent us from stepping into God's promises for us, prevents us from walking in intimacy with God. Hidden agenda, very quietly and very sneakily, wants to move God's agenda off the throne and replace it with our own. For those who are following in your books, I'm about to hit you with words 1 to 4 up front because I want us to read the introduction of Hidden Agenda, the description, which I think really, really packs a punch for who this giant is. So the Hidden Agenda giant operates through, word number 1, deception and disguise, presenting one thing outwardly while concealing another within. It's characterized by words of peace that hide a heart of criticism. It appears harmless, yet causes deep harm when exposed. Like a trap set in secret, it waits for moments of vulnerability to advance its own purposes. At its core, this giant is driven by, word number 2, self-interest, using people, situations, and even spiritual language to achieve personal goals. It's in relationships, it's in leadership, it's in society, and it often goes undetected because it's subtle, calculated, and hidden. And your fourth word, it manipulates situations to gain agreement or approval. This giant sounds like the real proverbial wolf in sheep's clothing, right? Really cunning, really manipulative. And I think many of us sitting here today would find it hard to identify with that. I know I did. But this giant is more subtle than that. This giant sits, and it's like that story that we hear of the ship where its direction has been set just half a degree off at the start of its journey, and it lands up in a completely different place. But it's taken so long for that to happen. It's happened so gradually that it wasn't noticed. And this is where I think we're most vulnerable to this giant. There's a song this week that came across my playlist a couple of times. It's a song by Lauren Daigle called You Say. And the first two lines are, I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Hidden agenda relies on these voices. When we come to Jesus, those voices lose validity. When we accept Christ, he hits mute on those voices, or invites us to hit mute on those voices. In Colossians 2, 9-10, we read that for Christ, all the fullness of the deity lives in bodily form, and in Christ, you have been born to fullness. The song goes on to say, but you say, I am loved. But you say, I am strong. But you say, I am held. You say, I am yours. Hidden agenda takes these voices, because we all have these, right? And contrasts what God is saying with a voice that he wants to turn the volume control up on. God says you are loved, Ephesians 3, 17-19, that you may be rooted, grounded in love. You may have strength to comprehend breadth, length, height, and depth, and to know the love of God that surpasses all understanding. Hidden agenda? Who are you? You need to do to be loved. You need to show up in a certain way to be loved. God's voice says, you're special. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, Psalm 139. Hidden agenda? Yeah, he might be saying, you know what? You need to show up in a unique way. You need to stand out in order to be recognized, in order to be special. God's voice? You can trust me. So to trust in the Lord with all our heart, and he would make our paths straight. Proverbs 3, 5-6. Hidden agenda? Trust no one. Trust yourself. Trust in your own knowledge. If you know everything, you don't need to trust in anybody else. And God invites us to be healed. By his stripes we are healed. Jesus was sent to bind the brokenhearted. A hidden agenda voice? Be positive always. Nothing can hurt you. And what hurt? What hurt? Nah, mate, just be positive, right? When I accept Christ, Christ lives in me. Galatians 2:20. Because Christ lives in me and Christ is love, Christ is worthy, Christ is healed, Christ is special, therefore I am all of those things. God sees all of those things. I have all of those things as God's promises to me and for me. Any of those voices resonating? You know, I think that the only difference in the voice that I might have that might be different to yours is the exact thing that it's saying to me, to you. How loud it might be at any given time. And the root cause. Was it something somebody said verbally to us as we were growing up? Or was that something that we interpreted out of a situation, a belief that we came to believe? God wants us to hit the mute button, or wants to hit the mute button. Hidden agenda wants to crank it up. So a couple of ways, I'm going to touch on 3 ways that hidden agenda operates. What's its MO, his modus operandi? And I spoke about the first one, in that this giant, firstly, preys on our vulnerabilities. He preys on these voices in our heads, these voices that often we're unaware are there or are still there because we've lived with them for so long. Second thing this giant does is it waits for a moment of vulnerability. And it links that moment of vulnerability with safety and with security being achieved by something that we've done. So my love languages, my receiving love languages are words of affirmation and quality time, but the way that I give love is acts of service. Now you will have noticed, or you may have noticed, when Cindy was missing, I was ready to jump up and go and find her. That's the kind of thing that I do. And growing up, I grew up in my late teens and early 20s. We had a group of Greek community friends who would regularly get together for Sunday lunch. Now, that's very quickly anywhere between 30 and 60 people. And this was a regular thing, right? And where there are Greeks, there is food. And not just enough food to feed everybody once. If there isn't enough to feed everybody twice and have leftovers, you've undercated, right? Because my gift of acts of service, and because I was the good Greek girl who did the things that were expected, and some of these households didn't have daughters, I would arrive and I'm in the kitchen. I'm helping to put the food into serving dishes. I'm taking things out. I'm clearing the dishes afterwards. Oh, there's a chair missing over there. Sort that out. Oh, we need more knives and forks. Helping to bring out dessert, packing everything away again, and only resting, potentially at the end of the afternoon. The message that I was receiving in those situations is this is what's expected in order for you to be accepted. Right? This is what I have to do to receive love in this situation. It was conditional on what I did. It's taken me a long time to be able to arrive in a situation and not be the one to jump up all the time. I still do it every now and again, but going to a friend's house and offering help and being okay with them saying, no, you know what, I've got this. Not feeling tetchy, sitting in my seat, feeling like I should be doing something, right? We each have a way of showing up. That's my way of showing up. Your way of showing up may be to be the one who is the social bunny, who's connecting the outliers in the group, bringing them in, making them feel welcome. Maybe you're the one who's been quietly in the kitchen during the week. Maybe at church you're the one behind the AV desk or behind the coffee machine where you can kind of control how much interaction you have with others. But God uses those naturally inclined ways that we show up in order for us to minister. It's not often he'll bring something in left field. He might, because he can, but he will often use those ways that we naturally show up. Those were at one point driven by the voices in our heads. But God is now using them for his work, for his love, for others. Hidden agenda, though, waits for a moment of vulnerability when that voice starts to play again. We've had a moment in the week where somebody's just touched us up the wrong way. And that voice, that volume has just started to come up a little bit. Maybe we don't even notice it. Often we don't notice it. And then I'm helping out. And Cindy says to me, "Hey, Sam, thank you so much. You're awesome. You're amazing." Can you hear that in Cindy's voice? Couldn't have done this without you. And I go, "Sure." Hidden agenda says, look what you did. When you did X, you were accepted. You were loved. You had value. We don't notice it though. The next time it happens again, and that voice gets a little bit louder and a little bit louder, until eventually I'm helping, not because I want to help, not because God is calling me into that situation to help, but because I want to hear Cindy's affirmation. I want to hear somebody saying, "Well done." I want to hear that, "Well done, good and faithful servant," but I'm not tuning into God saying that to me. I'm tuning into somebody else. And hidden agenda has made the link between my actions and safety and security. The third part of this MO is that this giant is self-serving, self-centered, and self-deceiving, because I may not yet have noticed that. It becomes about me and not about the other. Your point number 6, it leads to self-deception. Individuals believe their motives are pure while acting from a hidden ambition. The outward action is the same. Somebody looking in is not going to notice. But my heart has changed. Why I'm doing it has changed. So if we're unaware of this agenda shift, how do we recognize it, right? Because, this giant has moved God's agenda off the throne and replaced it with my own, but how do I notice that? If I've been self-deceived, because I am the biggest victim in this initially, I'm the one who's been deceived the most. Your point number 8 and 9, any signs of manipulative, cunning, or calculating behavior, or a lack of transparency and avoidance of honest communication. In working through this, there seems to be one thing that keeps on going through my mind, as in, this is the warning sign. This is the siren and the flashing light. And that's the feeling of offense. John spoke about offense a few weeks ago, and this is the thing. I feel offended when I'm not thanked for my help. I feel offended when I'm not asked to help. I feel offended when my help is denied. No thanks, we're good. I feel offended when I'm the person who is in an environment, and I was ChatGPT before there was ChatGPT. I'm the person who had all the knowledge, so-and-so will know, right? I feel offended when somebody challenges that knowledge. I show up in my unique way that I always do, that people kind of go, "Oh, you look so cute," and nobody says anything. Offense is a big stop and take a look. So what impact does this giant have on our lives? Word 5 coming up, this giant comes between us and others, preventing a genuine connection and creating a transactional relationship. It damages relationships and community, it erodes trust, and it breaks unity. I end up showing up in situations, being in situations, because it's transactional. Not because I care about the other, not so much because God has called me, but because of what I can get out of it. And like an addiction, it's never satisfied enough. And I need more and more and more. So I begin to look for self when I do things, rather than looking for what I can give to others without an expectation in return. True agape love is doing for others with zero expectation in return. It's an outpouring. Importantly, though, hidden agenda comes between us and God. I stop hearing what God wants for me. I stop hearing God pointing out the promised land to me. I stop hearing from God. I lose intimacy with God. His voice starts getting softer and softer. When those Israelites arrived at the Jordan, God said to them, there's your promised land. But he said to them, go and take the promised land. They had to work at it. They had to go in, they had to defeat the enemy. God didn't clear it of all the people and say, there we go, all yours. But he went with them. When they didn't go, he said, try and go in your own strength and you will be defeated. It's not yours. And the lesson for us there today, friends, is that we cannot take out this giant of hidden agenda in our own strength. Only God can. God can turn that volume control down. But we have our part to play. So what is that part that we have to play? And I've got 5 short points. The one is to practice humility. Philippians 2:3-4, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. The other first, and it's a conscious decision that we sometimes need to make. Number 2, to act in secret. In Matthew 6:1-6, Jesus talks about being careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. It is God who sees what we do in secret. Can I do what I am doing with no recognition? Am I okay with that? So it's continual, point number 3, continual self-examination, an examination before God. Your words 9 and 10, it requires allowing God to search the heart and to expose hidden motives, as only He can fully discern the truth. Sometimes He discerns the truth that we ourselves are blind to. Some of these agendas are blind spots for us. In Psalm 139, the psalmist prays, search me, O God, and know my heart. Coming to God and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and saying, show me. Perhaps not a bad thing to do an audit every now and again. Whether we think something might be going awry or not, and to go, Lord, please just help me check my compass. This thing that I'm doing, for me, am I preaching for possible words of affirmation that I might get at the end of the service?
Doing so well, sir.
Oh, thanks, John. Really appreciate it, because words of affirmation are my love language, right? So taking my love language with my acting love language, acts of service, and coupling those together, leave me vulnerable to that voice being cranked up. And doing an audit every now and again and just checking. And then number 4, love and obedience before God above recognition. That I'm standing up here today because God called me to stand up here today. Not because I'm seeking the recognition of others. Can I stand up here today and preach this message and have absolutely nobody recognize what I've done? I'll admit that'll be hard, right? That'll be really hard. I've been vulnerable up here today. But those are the questions to ask. Can I drop off a meal at somebody's house? Can I pop an EFT in somebody's account? Can I meet with someone and pray with them or share the word with them and have nobody know about it except me, the recipient, and God? Am I okay with that? Or do I need to splash my deeds across social media for the whole world to recognize? Yes, there's a place, but, the heart of it. Friends, the key. This is point number 5, the key and the answer to everything. Always, Jesus. Staying close to Jesus. If I am walking down the road with my hand in Jesus' hand, hidden agenda can hide in those shadows all he likes. He is not going to have the moment of vulnerability that he needs in order to strike. He's got no chance against Jesus. But I need to keep walking with Jesus through time in the Word, through prayer, through worship, through fellowship. If you remember nothing else in this entire series, the answer is Jesus. Always. And friends, we're fallible. We're all weak. We're all human. We all trip up. Often. It's not about perfection. None of us can achieve perfection. But it's about constant realignment. Constantly recalibrating that compass. That we are looking to Jesus. We are tuning in to Jesus.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you're thinking about taking this further, you can follow us on our website. There you will find access to our previous sermons, our banking details, or if you just want to contact us. If you consider yourself to be part of Center Church, we'd just like to thank you for your continuous support and partnership. Have a sick day.